What if you come across these three questions in your study of organic chemistry? How then are you going to tackle these questions? Let's say the question says, what are the names of the three organic compounds? Now, you can notice that the three organic compounds, each of them contains a nitrogen atom. Each contains a nitrogen atom. So what differentiates these three organic compounds? Now, what differentiates these three organic compounds is their functional group. Despite the fact that they all have a nitrogen atom, there is a difference between the functional group in each of these three organic compounds. You can notice that this first has an oxygen, while the remaining two has no oxygen. Now, you can see that this has two hydrogen atoms attached to the nitrogen atom. Though this has two, but it also has an oxygen atom, which this doesn't have. Now, if you look at the last condensed structure given, this has no hydrogen atom attached on it. Now, when you have this kind of functional group, ONH2, note that you are dealing with a functional group known as amide. Now, this functional group is written in this format, RC. Then the carbon is double bonded to the oxygen and then single bonded to the nitrogen, which is bonding to two other hydrogen atoms. So this kind of functional group is known as the amide functional group. Now, for this, you have this RC. Now, this particular carbon is not bonding to any other oxygen. It is only bonding to NH2, though it can be bonding to other hydrogen atoms or any other carbon atom, but not an oxygen atom. So when you have this kind of case, you are dealing with the amine functional group. Now, when you have a carbon and a nitrogen which is not bonding to anything, that functional group is written this way. Now, that carbon is triple bonded to a nitrogen atom. And when you have a carbon that is triple bonded to a nitrogen atom, then you are dealing with a functional group known as nitrile. So, in that case, first thing you have to do to name these three organic compounds perfectly is to identify their functional group. Now that we have identified the functional group in this particular organic compounds, the next to do is to name these organic compounds. Now, if we are to split this structure, then this is what we are going to have. This carbon bonding to hydrogen, three hydrogen atoms, and then bonding to this hydrogen, which is bonding to this carbon, and then you have your carbon, which is double bonded to oxygen and then single bonded to nitrogen, which is bonding to a hydrogen and a hydrogen. So in that case, we'll have our functional group and the compound being splitted to the simplest form for us to name it. Now, for the amide functional group, you start counting the longest continuous carbon chain on that particular carbon that is double bonded to an oxygen atom. So in that case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, 4 number of carbon atoms indicates both. Now, in naming amide, you only strike out the E in the corresponding alkane and add amide. So for that, the name of this particular compound becomes butanamide. The E in alkane striked out and the amide added. So the name of this first structure becomes butanamide. Now for this, when we split this, we'll have a carbon that is bonded to 3 hydrogen atoms and bonding to another carbon that is bonding to 2 And then lastly, we have the carbon bonding to a nitrogen that is bonding to two hydrogen atoms. So same goes to the amine. You start counting from that carbon that is bonding to the nitrogen atom. So you have 4 number of carbon atoms. Now in amine, you strike out the E in the corresponding alkane and add amine. So the name of this compound becomes butanamine. Not butanamide, but butanamine. So this is how you name compounds with the functional group amine. So lastly, on the number 3, when we split this particular structure, we'll have the structure this way. Now this particular carbon is triple bonded to a nitrogen atom. So for the nitrile functional group, you also start counting from that carbon that is triple bonded to a nitrogen atom. Now for nitrile, you don't strike out the E and add nitrile, but instead you name the number of carbon atoms with the corresponding alkene, which in this case is butane, and add the parent word nitrile. So the name of this particular structure becomes butane nitride. So this is how you name organic compounds with the functional group amide, amine, and nitrile. So on YouTube, I tutor organic chemistry, the nomenclature, and how you can identify and name organic compounds, including those that are just beginning in the study of organic compounds. So if you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.